This is Leatherass for StoxPoker.com. Today I'm making a video where what I'm going to talk about is playing a very tight basic strategy that I feel can beat limits probably up to 200 no limit, but certainly limits like $50 no limit and $100 no limit. And it comes with very little risk and very little thinking. A lot of it is just playing very basic, solid poker, even ABC poker you can call it. Anyway, this is the first hand of the table. I accidentally sat down with just under the max buy-in, which is something I never do. But anyways, I'm just going to re-raise the kings for value. Alright, so we take it down, which is fine. So what we're going to be developing is sort of a pretty solid image, actually very rock solid. And we're not going to be making a whole lot of moves at pots. We're just going to be playing very easy poker, but it's certainly a style that can win, 2, maybe even 3 or 4 big bets per 100 at a limit like 100 no limit. So the nines, there's a limper. And I'm just going to raise the nines for value, not for any other reason. As many of you know me, this is not the style that I normally play. However, I did used to play like this, and it yielded really good results. And it's basically what this strategy is. For the most part, it's just nut peddling. You're basically just waiting for hands, trying to get max value out of your hands when you do. And you're trying to keep the pot small when you don't have much. But here we have a pretty good hand, so I'm going to bet the 3 nines. And I get called, and I turn basically the nuts here. I've got the full house, so whatever he's drawing to. I'm going to keep the pot, or keep the bet somewhat small, because I figure he's going to check raise me anyway with a flush. So the money is going to go in anyway, and I want him to have odds to draw dead. If he has, like a ace of spades or a 10 or something like that. So he checks again, and I'm going to go ahead and just bet about 26 into 39 here, and just hoping he does have that ace of spades and will look me up. So I want to give him a bet he can feel comfortable calling with that holding, if that's what he has. Okay, so either way, a decent pot. So I don't know exactly what the poker tracker numbers will be, but my guess is this style would be something like an 18-14, maybe even like 16-12 style. Ace-queen suited here. I'm also just going to raise for value. Too good of a hand, I think, to just let a limper go. So that's just fine. Taking it down out of position is a decent result. So I'm not going to have any numbers, poker ace numbers on these guys. I sometimes do when I play the lower limits, just because my database is so big and I've played so many hands, throughout my career and at so many different limits that I usually have numbers on people. Sometimes I'll sit at like a micro limit game and I'll find somebody I have a number on. But I switch my poker ace to where I only draw off of my latest database. So I don't have numbers. I'm not going to have numbers on anybody today. But hopefully they'll come in. So we're just going to really just kind of look to stay out of trouble basically until we come across a really good situation, really good hand. Another thing I want to talk a lot about today is turn play. I think that turn play is maybe one of the most important streets in Hold'em, and it's certainly the street where I feel like a lot of people get themselves in a lot of trouble, and I want to help you guys avoid falling into that trap. Okay, so I actually do know a little bit about hoo-ha if you're watching this hoo-ha. I think that's how you say your screen name. Anyway, that's Sisnarf, who's a pretty active poster on StoxPoker. I've actually given him lessons before. Now he's sitting out, which is unfortunate. I think it'd be nice to be hung around for the video. Okay, so Queen 10 was good enough, even with our tight, solid game, to raise on the button. But now that we're 3-bet, we're not going to mess around. Okay, so King 3 suited. Again, I'm not going to raise him just because he limped. Okay, so now that he checked and I made top pair, I'm just going to go ahead and lead out for the pot. So I'm going to assume for now that all these guys with these full buy-ins are mediocre players until proven otherwise, because usually the donks kind of tend not to buy in for full. King 9 suited, this is close, but I'm just going to go ahead and raise. And re-raise, I'm done. The other great thing about this style is that the variance is super low. You're not getting involved in a lot of pots, so you can kind of just steadily accumulate chips. Looks like I'm going to have to find another table here. The game broke. Oh, I found a table with our buddy hoo-ha. If you're watching this, Sisnarf, I hope you didn't leave just because I was at the table, because I see you're still playing poker today. I doubt it though. I'm not that tough. Now he's probably going to think I'm following him. Anyway, bear with me also a little bit here. I still do have a little bit of a cold, and I still am at least somewhat recovering from my surgery. So I may have a few moments where my voice isn't up to par. 6-9 suited, I'm just going to muck on the button. That one's close, but you know, truthfully, it's been a long time since I've played this way, and I'm not exactly sure of what hand ranges I played, but I have a good idea. I just don't have it down to science like I usually do. So 6-9 suited may or may not have been a raise there on the button. The other thing I think is very important is that when playing the style, you want to also be very conscious of your image, because your image is not always very loose and crazy. So if you are against a better player and he's giving you a lot of action and you're not super strong, you might want to consider that you're beat. And that's a very general thing to say, but you just want to. I guess what I'm trying to say is you mostly just want to be conscious of your image and understand that you're not going to be perceived as someone who gives a lot of action, and sort of take that into account when making your decisions. It'd also be nice if I can record a win for you guys. I think that's only happened one time, and I've made 10 videos, so it'd be nice to show you guys a win. Of course, that would be a pretty dubious time to have that happen when I'm playing a different style than I normally play. For me to then finally record a win. But oh well, I win in poker, I promise. So the one thing that's obviously tricky for the video purposes is that when you are just sitting back and waiting for hands, this may or may not turn out to be a very exciting video. because of that. But hopefully I can make a few of these type videos for you guys, and we can find some more interesting spots. But truthfully, the nature of the style is that you don't get yourself in too many difficult spots. You're basically just doing a lot of folding when your holdings are less than stellar, and a lot of raising and re-raising when it's pretty obvious that you should be raising and re-raising. So if I'm not mistaken, the guy on the right, Snyder style, has a picture of Rambo as his avatar, and I think that is frickin' awesome. I think I'm kind of tied to having the StoxPoker avatar, but boy, if I wasn't, that would be something I would change it to. I usually have Kanish on there, which is where I got my name Leatherass, but Snyder style with the Rambo picture, I think that's pretty sick. I'll have to say this is definitely a change of pace for me from what I usually play. I'm having trouble hitting that fold button when I normally don't. Okay, so King Jack suited. Sometimes a lot can be learned on the pots we don't play. King Jack suited is one. I'm going to limp the 8-7 suited behind the initial limper here. Just using my positional advantage. But getting back in the fact that it's a good suited connector, I think that's worth playing. The King Jack suited here, I'm going to go ahead and just fold and kind of stay out of trouble. He opened from the first two positions. I should give him some respect for a hand. And this is the type of hand that can get you in some trouble. If I flop a king, I can definitely go broke to, king, queen, ace, king. And I'm just going to avoid that and stay out of trouble. Since they're both checked around and there's not much to draw to, and these ace-king is not huge in their range, I'm just going to go ahead and take a stab. $3 into a $3.50 pot. One thing where you can use your tight image is just in little situations like that, where obviously I don't think we're using that image there. We haven't established it yet. But when you have established it and you make that little bet, a lot of times I'll be in the blinds and some looser guy will make a little stab like that, and I'll just check raise him with anything because I know that that's just not in his range either. And so I just kind of turn that logic he used on me or the rest of us on its head and go ahead and check raise him, and you take down the pot a lot. But with your tight image, you don't get messed with like that too much. So very occasionally you can make little plays, but for the most part, that's not what I'm here to teach you. I'm here to teach you a very simple, basic style to play, and then as you branch off, you can do little things like use your image, to make certain plays. But for now, I think just sticking to really basics, solid poker is the way to go. So 5-6 suited, I didn't overlimp here because I don't have the button. There's 4 players stacked behind me, and king 10 I'm going to fold. Had I been on the button, I probably would have limped that 5-6 suited. So ace-9 is a perfect example of hands we want to avoid. They make a lot of marginal hands, and we're just trying to stay away from that kind of thing. I also still like to stick to, when I'm going to open a pot, to just open it for a raise if it's a 6-max game such as this. I don't really advocate limping a whole lot. So it looks like our pokes, opened some pots. But ace-jack, still just not quite strong enough for me, and I'm going to fold. Yeah, I'm not going to mess around with the 5-8, just give it to him. And I really think this is a great way for everyone watching this video that plays these limits or is playing just below these limits and looking to move up. I really think this is a great style to go with. And as your game improves, then you can branch out into playing more pots and getting involved in a lot of more marginal spots, ones that are marginal but still slightly positive EV. Right now I'm pretty much giving up all the marginal spots where I am slightly positive EV, but the one thing I gain is that I stay out of trouble, and also is that not everyone is at the point in their game where they're going to play the marginal pots really well. I have a lot of experience, and it's taken me a long time to learn how to play those spots, and I don't expect a lot of people to know how to play those. So I'm trying to teach avoidance, at least for now. I actually first learned this style from StoxTrader. When I first started learning from him, he taught me a very simple, basic strategy, and I feel like his early videos are really good for learning this style as well. So if you want to learn more of this, I recommend watching his early videos. This is kind of where I adopted this sort of style. So with the queens here, I'm just going to open to 3. You know, 3, 4, either way is fine. Okay, so flopped an overpair. And so I'm just going to probably just keep betting it for value, hopefully. But he folded, so that's fine. You know, the name of the game is stay out of trouble, and you know, just winning $4 or $5 here and there is perfectly okay with me. You know, I'm more interested with this style and just not losing big pots. Basically, you're just sitting back here waiting for hands, and trying to slowly accumulate chips, even if it is only $4 at a time. And you know, you're trying to essentially practice avoidance of playing big pots without you know, the nuts pretty much, or close to the nuts. And you know, I know the way I used to kind of look at it is I'm just going to sit here and accumulate a few chips at the tables and just watch those rakeback dollars pile up. For everyone that doesn't have a rake back deal, I highly recommend trying to get one because it's a nice little check at the end of the month if you play a lot, or even a reasonable amount. And you can, with this style, I think you can play more tables for one, and if because you're not getting involved in a lot of situations, and more tables equal more rake back money. So it's sort of a good way to go, to have low variance and sort of a steady accumulation of chips and rake back. Okay, so let's see if Hoo-Ha can get involved in a dicey spot here, and maybe we can critique his play a little bit. So the continuation bet I like, obviously, and he takes it down, so nothing interesting there. That was a great board to continuation bet with the King 7-5. There's just not a whole lot that McNabb here can have. Okay, so I do raise any ace on the button, and I'm going to make it 4. Okay, so I flop an overcard and a straight draw, so I'm going to have plenty of equity if he wants to put all the money in, and I probably will just play for stacks here. But we're just going to start with a continuation bet and see if anything even happens. Okay, so he calls. Not a good card for me to bluff at, so in the interest of just playing these smaller pots that I was talking about and sort of waiting for hands, I'm not going to semi-bluff this. If the turn were a king or something, and I thought I could budge him off a hand like ace-5 or, whatever he could have basically. But, I'm going to see a hand like 6-7 here a lot. Ace-4 now picked up a wheel draw. Ace-5. Hands that just aren't going to go anywhere with this bet. So I'm going to just check behind and hope to make my hand. Now, if he checks again, I'm going to probably take a little stab. Okay, but he doesn't, so now I'm just going to fold. I was going to say I was probably going to take a little stab just putting him on hopefully like a busted draw, or maybe a hand like ace-4 that would fold to a bet. But certainly, that's more or less my aggressive instincts taking over. If you never take a stab there, that's perfectly fine too. Again, it just kind of lowers variance. I think it would have been slightly positive EV to take a stab there, but again, only slightly. So, in the interest of just, like I said, avoidance, I think checking behind there and just showing down would have been perfectly fine. In fact, another thing I didn't even think about when I was making that decision is the fact that I did have ace-high. So trying to get the guy with the busted draw to fold doesn't make any sense because I had showdown value in my ace-high. If I thought he had a hand like a 4, like an ace-4 type hand, then it would make more sense to bet. But I don't know. I just kind of spazzed out mentally there. No need to try to bluff off a busted draw. Okay, so 3-5, I'm just going to take my free play. And I'll probably take a half pot stab if he checks. That's what he does. And he called, and I'm not going to use that ace card to try to scare him off or anything. I'm just going to give up. Alright, so he doesn't look like much of a folder. Alright, so ace high is good enough on the button. Let's make it 3. So it looks like I do have some numbers from Saratzilla, I guess it is. He looks like a pretty solid player. 23-17, that's usually a number of a pretty good player. So I'm just going to bet 4 into 650 pot. And I get check raised, and this is an easy fold for me. So I don't know what he would be doing. Maybe he's on a downswing. Maybe I saw him at. I've played a few hands at 400 no limit, so maybe things aren't going so well for him, and he's down at this limit. I don't know what else. Maybe he's really good and he's making a video. Wouldn't that be funny? All right, so Queen 10. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and just fold. As far as the deuces go, I think I can call for set value profitably. Queen 10 might be a little bit of a tight fold, but it's not too tight. All right, so Queen Jack suited under the gun. This one I am going to play. This would probably be the bottom of hands I would play from under the gun. And I'll also play Ace King suited. That one's a no-brainer. Okay, so I flop 2 overcards in a gut shot, but I'm just, I'm into 2 people here on a board that hits a lot of their range, and so I'm just going to check behind and hope to make a hand. Alright, so he overpots it, and I think I'm just going to give up here. I have top pair here with the jack, but I don't know what this all means, and he's very passive, so I can't imagine what I'm beating, so I'm just going to fold. He bets 8 into a $11 pot. I do have the gut shot. He could have a hand like 8-9, and I could really win a big pot. And then I also might be best with an ace or a king. I think I'm just going to peel here, although I think folding wouldn't be terrible. Okay, so I make top pair, and I think if he makes a solid bet, I'm going to have to fold. But he checks, so now this would be a pretty thin value bet. It's close. I think I'm ahead based on him checking. I don't think he's going to pay me off that often, and I think occasionally he will have me beat, and I'll be betting for him. So I think it's close enough to where, in the interest of lowering the variance, I'm just going to check behind. But a lot of times I'd make a pretty thin value bet there. Okay, so see, that's a good example of what I was talking about. He wasn't going to pay me there. So, but occasionally he's going for a check raise with a hand like Queen 9 or, Ace Queen. And so I just figured the odds he would have like an Ace Jack hand, which maybe he might pay me off with. Because what is he putting me on when I call there? I've got to have at least like an Ace King, King Queen, maybe Ace Jack myself, something like that. So I just didn't think I thought I was ahead, but I didn't think I was going to get paid. And that's not always a great argument for not betting, but in this case I felt it was. Sorry, most of you probably noticed I have paused the video a couple of times. Sometimes I just feel a spell of coughing or whatever coming on, and I don't want to, make this too brutal on you guys. I'm trying to do my best, and I've promised these videos for quite a while now, and I haven't delivered just because I've been laid up for a while, and I just don't want to disappoint anybody. So I'm trying to do my best here, and thanks for bearing with me. Okay, so with the sevens here, Jack 9 suited I'm going to fold. With the sevens here, I'm going to go ahead and call just for set value. This style I don't really ever re-raise pocket pairs. I'm pretty much only re-raising premium hands. Ace, king, aces, kings, sometimes queens. Which again is very exploitable if that's all you're raising against good opponents, but you're just not playing against a whole lot of top-notch opponents here, and that's why I think you can win a lot of money with this style. The sevens here, I'm just going to go ahead and bet 8. I was lucky enough to flop a set, but I'm not sure I'm going to get any action. Okay, so I got a call from Arakas. I don't even know how to say his name. I thought it was iPoker or something last time, but I'm just going to give him bets he can call here. I can get all the money in with small bets, so I've filled up now. I don't really have anything to worry about with 9, 10, or 5, 6 or anything. And he folds, so that's fine. It's a little disappointing not to get any action. It was definitely a flop that I could have got all the money in with ace, king, or aces. So a little disappointing to win such a small pot with flopping a set, but again, that's fine. I'm more interested in not losing as opposed to winning with this style. It's just it really is. I've said it a bunch of times in this video before, but it really is just kind of a slow and steady accumulation of chips. You losing $4 and $10 here and there, and winning $4, $10 here and there, but you don't lose a lot of big pots, and but you can win some, when you flop good hands. So, and since you're just keeping the pot small, when like for example, if I had the ace king there, if I was Snyder style and I had the sevens, if I bet and then were raised, being out of position with the ace king, I would probably just muck to that raise. So, because I'd be out of position, and we're just trying to avoid playing any pots out of position, and that's where you can make a lot of costly mistakes. So I just got to figure that if he's raising me, I'm just going to give him respect. I raise into the, say if I'm Snyder style, I would have raised into the gun. I bet on the flop. I get raised. I bet on a king high flop. He's got to figure ace, king, aces, stuff like that's a large part of my range, yet he's still raising me. And so I'm going to go ahead and give him credit. Now, you can't give credit like that to looser players or guys at higher limits that are putting moves on you all the time, but at these limits, people play a little more ABC. This style means you're giving a lot of credit to most people's bets, to 95% of guys' bets. If you get the truly loose guys that you just can't give it to them every time, then that's a different story. But for the most part, you're just giving a lot of credit to people. Okay, so ace 10, I'm about 128 blinds deep. Hoo-ha has me covered. If it were suited, I would play it, but out of position, I can just see myself getting in some dicey spots, and so I'm just going to fold. I wonder if he's picked up yet on the fact that I'm playing such a tight style. I mean, he's got to, I'm sure, if he doesn't have a million tables going, Hoo-ha's got to realize that this isn't the normal Leatherass, that when I play these limits, I mean, I get pretty kooky at times, and my VPIP and pre-flop raise can get in the 40s. So I'm sure he's at least realized I'm playing a tighter style. I don't know if he realizes I'm just nut pedaling just yet. So if I do get involved in a pot with him, I have to realize that he's got to at least notice that I'm not the maniac I can sometimes be in these games. So we haven't really gotten in any turn play situations, which is what I was hoping to talk about in this video, so we might have to save it for next time. But you know what, I probably could go over a few things, so here's what I'll talk about, since we have so much dead time when I'm not playing any hands, or very many hands. Okay, let's take an example. You raise like King Jack on the button, and one of the blinds calls, and the flop's like King 10-4, rainbow. He checks, and you bet, and he calls, and the turn bricks, something like 6 or whatever, and he checks again. Using a style, I always check the turn, because I'm going to call the deuces here just for set value, and then I'm going to fold. Because I don't have the nuts. I have a very marginal hand in the spot. I have top pair, medium kicker. And, while I'm probably ahead 90% of the time, I'm not going to bet, just because getting check raised is going to put you in kind of a 6 spot. And, also, if he check calls again, it's an opportunity to have him get a big bet in on the river when he's ahead. And I just like to keep the pot small with, marginal hands. And also, a good argument for doing it, because I've mentioned some of the downsides for doing it, is that if he does have a hand like Jack 10 on that board, or even like pocket, a pocket pair or something like that below 10s, a lot of times, say the river bricks and he checks again, and now you go for your little value bet, because, okay, it's pretty obvious your top pair is good. He's now going to pay you off with a really wide range. He's going to pay you off with, sometimes even as little as like ace-jack if he was calling for a gut shot, or he's going to pay you off with like, any 10 for sure, any weaker king for sure. And so that's a good argument for just checking behind, because if you bet the turn, he's going to fear that he's also going to have to call a river bet, and he's oftentimes going to fold his, his pocket pair below 10s. He's going to fold his 10. Not always, but, oftentimes he will. And so now you're getting an extra river bet out of those hands that only had 5 outs a lot of times, sometimes 2 outs, on the turn. So your risk of losing that small pot wasn't too big, but you get a decent sized river bet in, which is nice a lot of the time. So, and then you also say the river bricks and he bets out, you obviously call with your top pair, and a lot of times he has a busted draw and you get some money from them. Maybe it's sometimes just a weak draw that would have folded on the turn. So, there's a lot of good that can come from that way, and then you never lose a big pot that way. The worst, you call a pot-sized river bet, and in this game you'd lose, say you raised a 4, the pot would be 8 on the flop, you bet 6. He calls, so now there's 12 and 8, it's 20. And then he bets like 18 on the river or something. So you're going to lose, your share of that would be like $28. So, you're losing less than a third of your stack. Whereas, if you get caught up in some more marginal spots there and make a poor decision, you could lose maybe your whole stack with your top pair or half your stack or more. So that's an example of turn play. Out of position, I tend to just try to avoid it. I almost play no pots in this game without premium hands out of position, just because you get in such sick spots all the time. You need to have a lot of skill, which is going to come with a lot of practice and playing against tougher opponents and such to really build up a really solid out of position game. And until that happens, I just recommend not even playing pots out of position. It's so marginally profitable anyway, even for a really good player, to play pots out of position that I just recommend avoiding it. I'm going to limp behind with the Queen Jack suited here. So we have a min raise on the button, which God only knows what that means from this guy. I can't even imagine what kind of hand you do that. I mean, he may have sat down thinking he's playing limit hold'em. Who knows? Okay, so I was going to call the min raise, obviously, but this makes it very easy. I expect to see a pretty decent hand out of Hoo-Ha here. So that ace may be a really bad card for him. Yeah, he can definitely have like kings or queens. Then he'd be in a gross spot. It looks like he does. He checked the turn. That's too bad he didn't call, so we didn't get to see. I mean, I don't even know what this guy could conceivably call the flop bet with, and then he's going to fold to like a quarter pot bet on the turn, or on the river. Win the flush draw, made it. So if he was drawing at the flush, he would have already had the flush. So ace-7 was good enough for me to raise on the button with no draw and no anything. I'm just going to fold here. And the 8s, this is an easy call against this idiot. Alright, well that's too bad. Okay, so ace-9 suited. This one's close. I think I will raise this one for the cutoff. I think that should be okay enough. So I got my money in really good there, which is nice. It's just kind of unfortunate that the guy that whose money you're supposed to take, you end up giving it to. That's one of my biggest pet peeves in poker. I mean, I'm not too worried about it when I'm sitting here playing at a $100 game, but when you play the higher stakes games and you lose these big pots to guys that like that, it's just really frustrating. So I'm just going to follow up with a continuation bet. One thing I always do is my bluffing basically extends in the amount of bluffing I do extends no further than beyond the flop bet. When I do raise before the flop, I do put in the continuation bet almost every time with this style, but then I'm completely shutting down without a hand. So I just put that in right there, and I do think that that's profitable. So that's one thing I sort of didn't talk about too much that I wanted to talk about, was that with this style I still am putting in the continuation bet, but if money's going in on the turn or river, it's rarely ever a bluff. It's almost always a good hand. So I'm not going to sit there and double barrel anybody ever with this style. It's a pretty simple strategy where I'm just playing some really tight hands pre-flop. I'm betting on the flop pretty much no matter what comes, and then I'm shutting down without a hand and just trying to keep the pot small with marginal hands and play big pots with big hands. So that sort of sums up the session. I probably feel like I maybe could have explained all this a little better throughout the video, and so I will follow up with future videos using this style. And then also you guys can obviously pose any questions in the forums about this video. But I am going to start wrapping it up here. Ace King, I'll certainly play. That'll be my last hand on that table. So I'm not sure if I did win or not on this session. It'd be pretty close. Alright, so I take it down. So I guess that's going to wrap up our play today. But again, just to sum it up one more time, basically what you're doing is you're sitting at the table and you're choosing a very narrow range of starting hands. When you're playing these starting hands, you're playing for a raise, or you're occasionally limping behind with good implied odds hands, like the Queen Jack suited or the 8-7 suited that we did earlier. And then, so if called, you're going to go ahead into only one opponent, never into two, fire about 2/3 to 3/4 of hot bet, with or without a hand. Once called, you're basically shutting down into check call mode if you do have a medium strength hand, and you're not getting too much, and you're not getting raised and re-raised. You're also trying to, and that's out of position. When you're in position, you're trying to keep the pot small, with your medium strength hands, and virtually never bluffing. And then when you do have a big hand, you're obviously raising and re-raising for value and trying to get all the money in. But you're just, you're image conscious. You're playing, tight style. If good players give you action, just take that into account. And basically, that's about it for now. But I don't want to overwhelm anybody with too much in just one video. But that's sort of the basic rundown of the style. It's mostly just nut pedaling, sitting back, waiting for hands, not getting your money in any thin spots, and accumulating those nice rake back checks and making a few big bets per 100 along the way. So anyway, like I said, we'll go more into this stuff in future videos. But for now, I'm going to wrap it up, and please feel free to make any comments in the forums. Once again, this is Leatherass for StoxPoker.com.